Massive news dropped tonight with the 2024 organized play schedule, and I have a lot of thoughts. Now, I'm going to keep this video under about 10 minutes, so I'm going to assume that you have already read this absolute behemoth of an article. I am not going to go point by point. I'm probably going to entirely skip over a lot of the points made here. However, I do want to talk about the winners and losers from this overview because I think there's a lot good in here, and I also think there's some bad, and then there's some in the middle that I just don't know how I feel about yet. I think I need to sit on this news and maybe, experience a lot of these events before I pass final judgment. I think 2024 could be really, really cool with this announcement, but there are some things I'm worried about. With that said, let's start with the good things. First of all, this 2024 organized play overview solves every major complaint that I had about the 2023 competitive season. Like every single major complaint. First of all, and this might be just the biggest news of this article, we are given dates and places for every single major competitive event of next year. This is incredible. It's a massive win. I'm very thankful for this. Now I can go ahead and plan my travel around this. We're getting three, major in-person regionals. We're getting, for the U.S. players, I'm assuming U.S. players here when I say this, but we got Las Vegas, we've got St. Louis, and we've got Charlotte. So I can go ahead and wait for a good sale, go grab my plane ticket because I intend to be playing in all three of these major regionals. Very, very happy to be given those details up front. It was a big source of stress for me this year, not knowing when nationals would be, but really wanting to keep my schedule open because it was really important to me to make worlds, so I needed to be playing in Nats. Whereas now we already know January 24th to 26th, Dallas, Texas will be your U.S. nationals. So that's the biggest news in this article to me. It's the most important news. It's a major upgrade from last year. Also, Worlds has gone from 32 players to 64 players, which is another win. It's been feeling like 32 is just a little too small. It leaves a lot of people out. The other win is that there's no dead zone. This year we've had this competitive dead zone of November to January. It's not been totally dead. We did the Winter Clash. They've had these webcam events, but we have been missing regionals and nationals level events. There's no dead zone next year. Let's go find that chart. There's no major dead zone here. In fact, Nats takes place the end of January, and then you right away have Worlds February. Although February 14th to 16th. So we have Worlds very, very quickly after. Now that's both a blessing and a curse, but I think it's more of a blessing than it is a curse. It's a curse because you're not going to have a lot of time to figure out your travel plans. If you don't qualify until January 24th, then you have like 3 weeks to take time off of work and get yourself to Worlds. That's going to be a little stressful, but it's a big blessing in the sense that we don't have a dead zone, and Worlds is not taking away from the bigger group of players overall. And we've expanded it to 64. So that's a win. Right away, those were all of my major complaints about 2023. We have dates well ahead of time. We have more webcam, by the way, only 2 webcam events this in 2023, but in 2024 we'll have 4 major webcam regionals. Now, these are only going to give you half as many points as the in-person regionals, but I think that's fair. It encourages people to travel. I don't really mind that. Webcam is, we always get a ton of players. It's nice. The bad thing about 2023, sorry, I'm kind of stuttering here, but the bad thing about 2023 was that we had like a webcam event in June, and then we had it in July, and that was it for the year in terms of regionals. So they were like back to back, only 2 events in the year. Now we're getting them well spaced out, and we're getting 4 in a year. So major win there. Other thing is Worlds is back to a points system. There's multiple ways to get into Worlds, but the primary way is going to be through this championship point system. And these points are going to be trackable on the Universus Gaming Network, where you go and sign up for events and things, and you redeem your loyalty points, or I guess they call them now like loyalty coins, redemption coins. I don't know what they call them now, but you go and redeem them for promo cards. And that's just the main website. You'll do everything. It's got the new deck builder on it. And now you'll be able to track your championship points. You'll be able to see the leaderboard if you're qualifying for Worlds currently or not. That's a huge win. It's going to be a lot of fun to go and look at the leaderboard, because right now, the other benefit of this, like kind of side benefit, is it kind of tells us who the best players are, right? Like at that point, you just go to the CP leaderboard, and obviously it's not going to be perfect, but it kind of tells you like, hey, these are the players that have separated themselves from everybody else. And you can just mine championship points by doing lots of local qualifier tournaments and not just going to the regional. So there's a lot of different ways to earn this CP. It's nice that it can then be tracked. Okay, my other major win is that the 9 winners of each major regionals auto qualify for Worlds. This was a big deal to me. It felt like this year's Worlds is leaving out some of the best players, like Kevin Broberg. He took down 2 in-person regionals back to back. He's our reigning world champion, and for some reason, he doesn't get one of the 32 spots in this year's Worlds. That's crazy to me. He absolutely should be participating in Worlds this year, and he's been left out. This next year, if you win a regionals, you're automatically qualified. Nobody's going to win 2 or 3 regionals and then just get left out. My other thing, well, let's talk about some things that I'm not sure about how I feel on. The very first one is simply that we're only going to have 3 U.S. In-person regional events throughout the year. Now, we'll have 4, really, but this last one is nationals. Now, the good side of this is that these events are going to feel more special, and hopefully they'll be bigger events. We had a number of in-person regionals this last year that were only getting like 70 players. Now, you could say that's because of the pricing, but it's also because there were just so many in-person regionals that people would just pick the one that they wanted to go to. Whereas now, if there's only one every quarter, everybody's going to be piling in to just that regional and just that city. And hopefully these regionals consistently are hitting 200 plus players. That's what I fully expect. I expect regionals to get about 200 players, and then nationals about 400 players, and equal this year. Hopefully even grows from compared to this year. So in that sense, if they're bigger and better regionals and they feel like more of an experience, then that's a good thing. But it's a bad thing if they feel equal to this year's regionals and we just got less of them. If that's the case, then I would just want more of them. But if they feel bigger and better, which, and they have better pricing. Now, this article doesn't tell us anything about pricing for these events. And it's hard to fully judge a organized play schedule if we don't know the pricing. So if the pricing is incredible, if these are huge events, it's going to be a big win. If the pricing is lackluster and the event size does not dramatically increase, then it's going to feel like a net negative. Not sure on how I feel about it. The other thing I'm not sure on how I feel is this, that regional level play is going to have mixed format Swiss. So the Swiss rounds will be standard format and draft format. If I had my way, I would much rather just have standard format. I don't know of any competitive player right now that had a gripe about format only having one main competitive format. I don't know of any major competitive player who has that gripe. Like all the competitive players I talk to, we just want to play standard. That's the format we want to play. We want to bring our standard deck. We want to play Swiss standard. We want to play Top Cut standard. We want nationals to be standard. We want worlds to be standard. I don't really know of anybody saying, yeah, we want more spotlight. We want more draft for these major competitive events. Maybe having like these specialty events be spotlight and draft would be fun. Like this whole Wish tournament thing being, invite only from like your locals playing sealed. That's pretty cool. And I'm not against that. But having the draft format come into Swiss, it could be cool. Like, I'm not totally opposed to it. Again, I just have to kind of sit on this. I have to kind of let this idea marinate. Maybe I just have to experience it. Maybe I'll like it. Again, this news just broke like an hour ago. You can tell because I'm stuttering all over the place and I don't have fully formulated thoughts for you. I'm just decided to open up my computer and press record. So it could be really cool, if you have like 6 rounds of standard and then the last 3 rounds are draft. I have a lot of fun playing draft. I think it's still pretty skill intensive. A lot of, people say, well, it's luck because of the cards you picked. Not so much. I mean, it's going to come down to how skillful you are as a player, how good you are at quickly putting together a deck from your cards. I do think draft needs to be 8 packs instead of 6 packs. I have a problem with the format in that aspect. I think saying that you have to take 40 cards from 6 packs increases the luck factor quite a bit. But if you had 8 packs, it would be much more fair. But then I get that it maybe would be more expensive, would take more time to open up and make your deck, and we still want it to move at a good clip and be affordable. So I understand why it's 6 packs. Probably rambling a little bit about draft, but I'm not sure about how I feel about draft format entering Swiss. I'm not like repulsed by this idea, but I'm also not excited by this idea, and I don't know who is asking for it. Like this organized play schedule, it solves all the problems that I had, but then it creates new problems. Like I just don't know who is asking for draft to enter our format. And that's going to kind of lead me to my other point. I don't even know where it is in the article. This thing's so huge. This thing's so huge. Let's go to play formats. Nationals. Nationals will feature a mix of standard constructed, spotlight constructed, and limited draft, with top cuts featuring standard constructed. So not only did draft infiltrate regionals, but now we got Spotlight coming into Nationals. I can only assume that Spotlight's going to be Attack on Titan Spotlight. Right, because Nationals is going to be like early 2025, when we've had 2 sets of Attack on Titan and a Challenger series of Attack on Titan. So it's absolutely going to be Attack on Titan Spotlight constructed. And now Nationals is 3 formats. Man, I just want to bring my standard deck. You know what I mean? So I'm not entirely opposed to it. Still going to be fun. I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to be having a blast. I think you should too. And who knows, maybe I sit here in 1 year and I'm saying, wow, this was the best idea ever. I loved having this multi-format Nationals. And if I am saying that, then I'll be really, really happy. But as of today, I just want to play Spotlight. I just want to play Standard. And then Worlds will be multi-format and feature formats you have experienced throughout the year. Basically saying we haven't decided what Worlds is yet, but it's not just going to be Standard. It's going to be some sort of mix. So it follows Nationals, which means that other than webcam regionals will feature Standard constructed or Spotlight constructed. The events that I'm most excited for to play are the webcam events. The webcam events are not locked based on invites. Right, you need to have 2 seasonal points. Now I'm going to get into these seasonal points because this is my major gripe with this organized play article is everything to deal with seasonal points is dumb. Okay, I got ahead of myself. But the webcam regionals are not locked into seasonal points. So everybody can play. It's just going to be standard constructed. There's going to be no draft. So I'm kind of most excited for webcam regionals this year. And there's going to be 4 of them. I'll be playing in all 4. I'm going to have a blast. That's what I'm most excited for. I kind of hope that we don't really have any Spotlight constructed. I just want everything to be standard. I don't know. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you're not like me. I just want standard. I like things to be really, really simple. I find that the more simple something is, the better it is. And that was one of their key points in their article that was released earlier today by Bill Stark was what's holding new players from jumping into this game? Well, it's too complex, right? And that's something that we all love about this game is how complex it is. But it does need to be down to earth enough to where new players can come in and very quickly be understanding the game mechanics and having a good time. And the same should go for your organized play. Like this organized play at the moment, it's too complex. This could be simplified. I've been in the Discords. There have been people saying incorrect things about this article all over the place because this is just a really long and complex article. And, all these multi-formats, the different point systems, it's confusing. And I don't like confusing. I like things to be simple. Okay, which brings me to the seasonal points. We're going to have these championship points and these seasonal points. Now, these seasonal points are basically useless and mean nothing and serve no purpose. They serve one purpose. If you have 2 seasonal points, you qualify for an in-person regional, for one of the major regionals. Okay, that's their only purpose. But it's confusing because there's like this seasonal points, and then they give us this chart here. Your seasonal points are going to convert to championship points when you're playing in your local qualifiers. You can get 6 seasonal points. What's the purpose of giving 6 seasonal points to someone if all it's good for is 2 seasonal points to qualify you for an in-person regional? All it's doing is confusing the player base. It's just confusing. The seasonal points needed to have been killed. I don't like anything with the seasonal points at the moment. I think everything should have just been championship points. Your locals, you can still really encourage locals play by having your locals give championship points. That's a great idea. And they implement that a little bit here. They have like 2 types of local play that are like big time. You have your local qualifiers, which give you your seasonal points. And then you have like your local championships, which give you like championship points. And then unused seasonal points at the end of the season turn into championship points. So everything is championship points. You could have still encouraged local play by just giving out championship points. There's no reason to give out these complex seasonal points and have this dual point structure. The only reason is to gatekeep major regionals. Did anybody want regionals gatekept? Was anybody asking for this? I don't know of anybody asking for this. And then, so here's the other thing. A lot of players in this game don't have a locals. Webcam is their locals. Well, you need 2 seasonal points to qualify for an in-person regional. If you participate in the webcam regional that season, you get a point. But even if you win that webcam regional, let's say you win, you would get a lot of championship points, but you don't get any more seasonal points. You just get the one for participating. So the only way to qualify for an in-person regional, you have 3 ways to do it. You can participate in 2 local qualifying events. You can participate in 1 local qualifying event and perform well. Or you can participate in 1 local qualifying event and 1 webcam regional. So there is 0 ways to qualify for an in-person regional, at least that I can see, unless you participate in an in-person local event. But what about those people who live in small towns, who just live in kind of areas that are kind of like dead zones for competitive play for this game? Like, I understand they can reach out to the support team at UVS and try and get a local scene going. That's a lot of work. That's a lot to ask someone to do. How are we gatekeeping these people out of major regionals if they don't have a locals? Now, I understand webcam regionals are open, and that's good. But gatekeeping the in-person regionals is a really weird choice to me. It doesn't sit right with me. Nothing about these seasonal points sits right. It's overly complex. It wasn't needed. Okay, I think I made my point maybe too strongly. Again, this is late at night. I'm just filming this off the cuff. Very little prepared speech here, so I can tend to maybe say things a little more, not like aggressively, but like a little more emphatically maybe than I really mean. Because overall, I'm really happy about these changes. They fixed almost all of my gripes of 2023 organized play. It's just that they introduced these new things that I'm not a big fan of. I just don't like seasonal points. I don't like them at all. Unnecessary complication. Okay, I've said that. I've said this a million times. Okay, let's go to the last thing. World's representation based on region is really weird. So we increased world invites to 64 players, right? Which is a win. But then let's look at how you get into these. 9 winners of each major regionals. Again, even though the US has by far the most players, we get just as many in-person regionals as the OCE region and the EU region. We don't get any more regionals than them, even though we have quadruple, quintuple the competitive players on the scene, right? Like if we compare like nationals, like I don't think either the EU or the OCE nationals reached 100 players. Whereas in the US, we had 400 plus players competing at nationals. So it was much on a percentage, as a percentage of the player base, it was much, much harder in 2023 to get your Worlds invite if you were a US player than if you were an Oceania or a EU player. And that's just facts. Based on percentages, I know the US will still get more players in, but based on percentage of the overall player base, it was harder for a US player to get in. And in 2024, this is going to be even more so the case. Let's just consider the Oceania region, for example, the smallest region. And Oceania players, I love you. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you at Worlds. I really enjoy watching your events. This is not a slight against you guys whatsoever. Just want to get that out of the way. However, so we're going to have 3 OCE players qualify from the major regionals, 8 top finishers of every nationals, right? Doesn't matter how big those national events were, it's just the top 8. So if OCE gets 60 players and US gets 600, it's the top 8 either way. So OCE gets 8 from here. 8 plus 3, we're at 11 right now. 30 top championship point winners. And then this 30 is split across, it says it somewhere here, but it's 5 North America, 5 Oceania, 5 Europe, and then the next top 15. Yeah, here it is. Next top 15. So we were at 11 qualifying in the Oceanic region. Now we're at 16. This year we had 4 OCE players qualify, right? Based on their nationals for Worlds. Next year we're going to have 16. The number of Oceania players in Worlds will quadruple at minimum. At minimum, OCE representation will quadruple. Now let's consider about US. US was already in a much more tough position than the other regions as a percentage of player base. We had 16 players qualify for Worlds this year. Next year we'll have 3 plus 8, that makes 11, plus 5, 16. Now let's assume that all of the top 15 worldwide of the next highest CP winners are US-based players. Then that means we'll go to 31 US players in Worlds. That means that best case scenario, the US representation in Worlds almost doubles, whereas minimum case scenario, the OCE player representation in Worlds quadruples. I don't know if that sits right with me, you know? And I know I say this as a US player. Listen, I intend to be one of these Worlds players no matter what. I intend to be one of these 64. I'm going to try my darndest to qualify for Worlds next year. Hopefully I just get it because of course I'm going to win in February with Hawks, and then I'll get my auto invite that way. Assuming that doesn't happen though, I'll be like everybody else trying to get their invite, and I'm still going to try my best. I just don't understand why we're quadrupling OCE representation, and even if US players make up all of these top 15, we don't even double. World's qualifications feels really, really unfair to players in the US and the US region. It just does. It's a really weird decision to do this and kind of punish US players. What was I going to say about that? Oh, that brings me to my last point. Is Worlds travel going to be paid for next year? Because we're going from 32 players to 64 players. And the most expensive players to fly out to Worlds are, of course, going to be your overseas players, which we are way increasing our pool of overseas players coming to Worlds. Right? It's going to be really expensive to pay for example, 16 OCE players to fly to the US. Are they going to pay for that? Or are they going to make the players pay? In which case, are we going to even have 16 OCE players that want to pay for flights to the US on 3-week notice, right? Flights on a 3-week notice. They're just going to be able to take off time, do this super long flight, and take this whole week off to play in Florida. I'm a little worried about how Worlds. So 64 players at Worlds, good thing. The exact mechanics of Worlds, I'm a little worried about. It kind of worries me how close it is to the national levels events. It kind of worries me about the representation of different player bases. Okay, but those were all of my things that I have concerns about. So, concerns about, I don't like seasonal points. I don't like the representation here. I don't like forcing people to have a locals to get to play in an in-person regionals. I'm still not quite sure about how I feel about less in-person regionals. I'm not sure about how I feel about draft format entering Swiss rounds for in-person regionals. I'm not sure how I feel about nationals and worlds being multi-format. But let's end this video with just reiterating the good things. I love having all my dates already planned out. I love the idea of bigger and better events throughout the year. I love the idea of this Wish tournament, this kind of side quest tournament that they've already announced with Yu Yu Hakusho. I love that kind of idea. I love a points-based world system that's going to be trackable on the UGN, and I love being able to see the leaderboard. I like encouraging local play. I love my local game store here at Stormcrow Games. I really enjoy the local qualifiers and the local championship. I think both of those are good ideas. I just wish they gave out championship points instead of only seasonal points. So with all that said, there's a lot of good in here. Fixed all of my major issues with the 2023 competitive season. Then it added on these other issues, and then there's a few things that I don't know how I feel about. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me. If I was to give it a rating, it's like a 6 out of 10. I think this is a positive thing overall. I think Organized Play 2024 is going to be positive. I think there will be things to learn from for 2025. There's a few things that I honestly hope they change. We haven't started 2024. I kind of hope that maybe they change a few things before we start, although maybe they view it as being too late at this point. Now, I'm definitely going over 10 minutes at this point. What was the last thing I was going to finish off on? Well, now I can't remember. What's funny is charts like this. I know these arrows are supposed to make it more simple, but to me, whenever I see all of these arrows, my brain goes, it just goes off. It's I don't know what's going on here. I guess the arrows are supposed to simplify it, but all it's making me do is not know what's going on. So go and read this. There's a lot of really cool things in this article. Let me know what you think. Again, I am going to try my absolute best to make every single in-person regional. As soon as Southwest Airlines is running one of those 50% off fares sales, then I'll be trying to get to Las Vegas, St. Louis, Charlotte. I'm even going to try and make an event in the OCE region or the UK EU region. I'm going to try to do at least one international event this year. It's been a major goal of mine for a while now. Maybe I'll save it for their national levels events and I can go and steal one of those invites and I'll just, go and hang out with a lot of players that I haven't met before. It's going to be a lot of fun. This event right here, April 27th, that is the day I turn 30 years old. So I might be spending my 30th birthday in Las Vegas playing cards. If I scrub out playing Universes cards, I can always just go play some Texas Hold'em. So win-win. Let's see, July 13th, 14th, St. Louis, Missouri, and then down here, Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, I will say I've kind of had this plan. Maybe I'll close off on this because I've kind of had this plan to create a Let's Talk UVS competitive team of players who are committed to weekly playtesting, players who are committed to going to all of the in-person regionals alongside me. And then just, being one of the major, it made me kind of jealous to see 3 out of 4 of the finalists in the Winter Clash all be part of the Unfun Stuff group. And I was just thinking, I want to create a team where we get together, we push ourselves to our limits. We're always playtesting and talking to each other. And then we're taking down and winning events. And people say, oh, that person's part of the Let's Talk UVS competitive team. They are a legit player. And so I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. Probably put out an announcement here in the future about like, I think it'd be cool to have like 8 members of the competitive team. Probably put out an announcement here in the near future now that we have organized play details. But this is where I'm at. Solid 6 out of 10. I need to let it marinate a little more. I'm still not quite sure about how I feel about these things. Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions.